Hello everyone. Today I thought I would briefly, or at least try to briefly, because don't know how long this video is going to go, but hopefully I can get it down to a point where it's concise and understandable. But without further ado, let's talk a little bit about a particular director, and as you can see by the title, it's from wherever you're looking at the title, up or down. It's M. Night Shyamalan. Yes, M. Night Shyamalan. Where to begin? I guess you could say he started off with a fairly, I guess, positive presence in the movie-going community with making films like The Sixth Sense and then Unbreakable. So he started off already as a director who was able to make some memorable films, not including, I guess, some previous stuff that he did before The Sixth Sense and Unbreakable, but it seems like those are the films that people, at least for the most part, seem to enjoy the most, feel like that they get the most value out of. And then there's kind of a sort of turning point within his career where critics and moviegoers alike seem to feel sort of torn up between his movies. It seems like, from what I've researched, it's almost like people are kind of like split almost, and not split to the point of thinking that he's a genius, I guess, with the other films that came out after The Sixth Sense and Unbreakable, but it does seem like that people either enjoy them as guilty pleasures or kind of find them, I guess, enjoyably amusing at times. And I'll kind of explain that as I go through the movies. But basically this video is intended to sort of discuss, I guess, the problems and issues that people had with these movies after Unbreakable, and what I would have done differently in order to make it so that maybe people wouldn't be so overly critical of what M. Night Shyamalan was, I guess, trying to say. Now, the first film that I think sort of had people sort of either up in arms or feeling like that it was a good film, again, this sort of critical divide, instead of the majority agreeing with, I guess, Unbreakable and agreeing with The Sixth Sense. This one seems to be very, very split and very, it's almost like it was at the, it's like, here's kind of The Sixth Sense and Unbreakable up top here, and then there's Signs. Signs is just like right here. And I think the issues in Signs are fairly clear. It's almost so clear, it's baffling. So you have this alien movie, in case you don't know what Signs is about. Basically, it's an alien movie starring Mel Gibson and Joaquin Phoenix, and basically the problems that people have with this film, and I feel is a really huge issue, because if you want to tell a good sci-fi story, you have to have things, make sense, because it's sci-fi, it's science, it's logic. You want to make sure that you can offer an explanation. But with Signs, I feel like that explanation is lost, especially with the plot. Now, the plot is that aliens are invading, and there's this family who has a farm, Mel Gibson being the lead, and then Joaquin Phoenix playing the brother, and it has kid actors too. And basically, they're gonna be they know that they're ultimately gonna be attacked by the aliens, so he feels that the best way to protect them is to board the house up with pantry doors, and he thinks that this will stop the aliens. And what's so baffling about this plot point is that you think that being a sci-fi movie and aliens traveling so far away that they wouldn't have trouble trying to open a pantry door. It's just kind of funny. Like, they can't, okay, they can travel, they have all this advanced technology that they are willing to attack us, and yet they can't go through a door. It's just so amusing. It's just so, like, wow, really? And then not only on top of that, but it gets even funnier, because there's another plot point that's supposed to be very important. I mean, it's like the turning point, is that the aliens' weakness is water. Water! And they're invading a planet that's covered over 70% of water. It's just so amusing. I just can't believe it. I just go like, really? Like, really? The aliens didn't suspect? Like, they didn't, just go down on Earth and then realize, we shouldn't, let's not bother with this planet, what's the point? It's like, and the problem is that there's no explanation for these plot points, like, and I think this is what M. Night Shyamalan does with his movies, is he makes things obscure and has sort of the audience figure it out, like, yeah, you figure it out, and it's kind of like, at least give us an explanation, like, give us an understanding of why the aliens would want to do this, like, what their motivations are. At least give us an understanding of the context of your plot. But here, there's no explanation as to why these aliens would do this and why they have these inabilities. It just baffles me. It's just mind-boggling. It's mind-bogglingly funny because it's just so clear, like right in the face of people. It's just so obvious. Why would they invade a planet that is covered in 70% water, and they know and if they end up knowing that's their weakness? Like, I mean, I could understand maybe the aliens not knowing beforehand. Possibly that that water is their weakness. But when it's covered in 70% of this stuff, and, aliens are supposed to be very smart, and highly advanced, do you think that they would, like, skim this out and see if this is really a planet that they want to invade? I mean, come on. There's just no logical explanation for it, and I feel like he doesn't explain it in the film. He doesn't try to offer us an understanding, and I keep being put with questions that I don't think should be questions. Kind of like the problem I had with Prometheus, and that there was just so many open-ended questions that should have been answered but weren't answered. So, yeah, I think that's kind of a problem with M. Night Shyamalan movies, is that a lot of the times, after Unbreakable again, and The Sixth Sense, we got these kinds of films that just didn't know what to do with the source material and didn't know how to convey a story that was logical and made sense. So that was a big issue for me, in particular with Signs, was these plot holes that ultimately didn't make sense. Now there's another thing in Shyamalan films, in particular this film, where the acting and characters, oh my lord, are they not interesting at all. Man, even the kid characters, I mean, I think the only one that really had a little bit of a personality was the little girl. And that's saying something. Because she was, okay, I can get it, she's innocent, she's cutesy, she likes to have, she likes to dance, there's a point where they're talking and she's like, no, this is my ballet recital, I don't want to tape it over my ballet recital or whatever. at one point in the film, and if you see the film you'll understand what I'm talking about. But really, these characters are just not all that interesting or leave an impact on you at all. Like, you don't really root for them, or, I mean, yeah, you kind of feel bad that Mel Gibson's wife died, but at the same time, the moral is kind of odd, because it's like, oh yeah, I have the will to live now because, we fought against aliens, and she died just so that she could give a line for Joaquin Phoenix to do in the future. And if you watch the film, you'll understand what I'm talking about, but oh my lord, is it... Oh, it's just really odd. And then the behavior too, like, there's this one scene towards the beginning where the dog attacks the kids, and then the boy kills it, and they don't hear anything. Like, the dad's off somewhere in the field with, I guess, the police officer, and yet they don't hear that there's this dog trying to attack, and kids are trying to scream, and I mean, it seems like the girl didn't even react to anything, and it's just so weird. It's just not realistic. I think that's the best way I can describe this film, is that the characters aren't really relatable or realistic. The story in itself doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It doesn't offer explanations as to certain points, and that's why I really find that this film just struggles for me. It's like, oh my, it's so hard to it's hard not to, I guess, laugh at it. There's just certain points where you'll see in M. Night Shyamalan films where he does things and tries to think that somehow this point is genius, and really it doesn't come off that way. And I think this really did start with Signs. I mean, I think you could say Signs, even though it maybe wasn't as bad as the other films that we're going to look at, it was kind of a start to a downfall in his career. And it's kind of sad, because, I mean, you think that with such concepts like The Sixth Sense and Unbreakable, he would be able to make another film that sort of captured that same thing, and with aliens. But in this one, there's just too many unrealistic there's too much unrealism in the characters' behaviors, and it's unrealistic in the way it portrays the aliens. It doesn't have compelling characters. It's just a very cluttered mess, and I don't really know what else to say about it. I mean, it's just laughable. It's just very, very laughable. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think it's maybe as bad as the ones we're gonna look at next, but it was kind of a dud movie. But what I would have done is, again, pick good actors and at the same time give them personality. I don't know if it's because the stale acting was what M. Night was going for, or if this was the actor's choice to do so, but he needed to make these characters lively, and there was just no life to them. I felt it was very, very dull. They were just very bland, and I think that came through with the acting as well. So had he made maybe more interesting characters, then the actors would have had more work to do, but it doesn't seem like he gave the actors anything to really do except act stale and talk like this and show no emotion whatsoever on the face, like at all. So again, it kind of has that aspect going for it, and that it's just, oh my lord. And then again, just to change the way the aliens are structured and the way the humans are structured. If you make the humans more realistic and more likable, and make your aliens seem like they have a motivation or a reason to attack Earth, and not make their weakness water and pantry doors, then you probably would have come up with a better movie. Like, that's the best way I could put it. Like, just don't make the weaknesses, like, so, I don't want to say that they're lame, but they're cheap. You'll see this in The Happening too, and once we get to The Happening I can talk about that, but it's the same thing. It's like the same kind of formulaic weakness. Oh, their weakness is water. Not anything else, just water. You know, they don't like water. Oh, and yeah, you can chop their hands off, you know, or fingers off too. I just feel like that there should have been more context in this movie and more explanation, and at least to give better reasons for the aliens invading, giving better reasons as to, you know, their motivations, because we don't get any of that at all. And really, I felt like with The Sixth Sense and Unbreakable, things made sense and things flowed well, and this does not flow well at all. So, yeah, I think Signs was really the first kind of dud for M. Night Shyamalan, and it only goes down further the tubes from there, which is really sad. I mean, you know, here's somebody who started off making 2 good films, and then now you have this one, and then now you don't know what to think anymore. It's like, is he gonna get better? Is he gonna try to do something new? Is he gonna go back to the drawing table? But not really. And I can totally understand if you like his films for whatever reason, but I think in particular with Signs, those were the problems I had, and those would be the solutions that I would give. Make characters likable, make likable and interesting, make the aliens' motivation clear, and give them a better, you know, weakness. At least with War of the Worlds, it was a lot more of a complex reason than this, in that it was like bacteria or just small microscopic organisms that killed the aliens. At least that is not as clear as water. You know, it's not as in your face as water. You know, just, oh my lord, just not, yeah, okay. So yes, this is basically what I would have done. Just make those 2 things, just fixing the aliens, you know, making it clear what their motivation is, why they're invading Earth, make clear their weaknesses too, and don't make it some obvious thing that's pretty much Earth is fully supplied with. And make your characters interesting, and don't make them have very odd behavior. I mean, you have to make things real, you know, for a sci-fi film in an unreal context. That's what a sci-fi film is supposed to do, and this one just didn't do it. So I think that's really all I can say about Signs, in that those were the problems, and that's what I would have done. Now the next film I wanted to briefly address is The Village. And, oh my lord, The Village. Is it as worse as Signs? Or is on the same level as Signs? I guess you could say that, to a certain extent. I think it kind of is a divisive movie, and that some people, ooh, they might like this twist because, yeah, it means that they're, it means that he took a concept and, you know, did something interesting with it or whatever, but to me it's kind of a little odd, The Village. It really is dull, though. I mean, it does kind of drag, and when there's like these intense moments, then it's hard to kind of go, oh, now I'm invested now. Or okay, something, I just want the monsters to come already. When you're wanting that to happen and you're not enjoying the film as it progresses, then you know that a film's not doing something right. And I felt like that's what this film kind of did for me. And I kind of need to go into spoilers here with this one, because a lot of people, I think, do kind of complain about the ending. But basically, The Village is about these people who kind of live, like, I want to say they live sort of like Amish people, in that they live off of sort of 18th century means, in that they don't use really technology and all that stuff. And basically, I don't know if they live on there because of religious reasons. I don't even think it's emphasized that they are really, I guess, Amish or anything. Or it just says, yeah, here's these people. And at first you think that they actually lived during this time period. You first think, oh, they're living in this time period, they're living in a more isolated area. Okay, this makes sense. And then we get to the twist ending and realize, no, they're actually in the 21st century. It was all just because these people wanted to make sure that they stayed where they were and didn't go out where technology is. And if you watch the film, you'll understand what I mean. And that's really what the monsters serve as. It's just not a how do you say? It's just kind of a disappointing twist. It's just a predictable twist that doesn't serve a purpose, really. It's kind of odd. It's almost like M. Night Shyamalan wants to say, hey, they could have been real monsters, but what I'm going to show you is that it was actually all a hoax. And oh my. For me, that doesn't really make a compelling twist at all. It's just kind of, I don't know, I almost feel like it's something we've seen before. And I mean, I'll give it kind of credit that it doesn't fall into these kinds of, I guess, similar issues as Signs, but it comes off as very just odd and just confusing, and just very dull too, because the characters aren't really all that interesting or offer anything to engage people in the story. And the thing too is that it would have been, I think, better with the twist ending to maybe actually have people dress up and pretend that and maybe have this whole point. But it would have been interesting too if there were monsters there too, like actual monsters. Like there are people who are trying to hoax people out, and then there are actual monsters. Like that would have been, I think, a little bit more interesting than just putting this whole idea, yep, it was all a hoax. It was just so that they could protect people from the outside world. And I find that to be really just dumb, because if you've established a society like in the middle of I think they're in the middle actually of a wildlife preserve, and I found that to be very, very kind of dumb to put them there, because I mean, wildlife reserves are supposed to be kind of like, property. It just, how could they like get away with like being in there with nobody like actually taking the time to like walk around where they are and notice them being there? So that's why I never understood. And the thing is why would they want to give the people an idea of what, even if there is an outside world? I mean, how would these people even know that there is an outside world? I mean, if you are living in that kind of a society, you wouldn't really question it. You would almost think that you were living in the 18th century. It's like, I just think that the hoax aspect really drags it for me personally, because I just think that the twist was cheap, and just showed a cheap message instead of it being for another more interesting reason than that. Maybe if it was out of, I guess you could have, I mean, it's kind of established that nobody knows that there is an outside world or anything. So wouldn't it make sense if somebody discovered it, that they would, have them, I guess, maybe, I don't know, killed or something, because they don't want their society to crumble? That kind of, and maybe dress up like monsters or something, so people will think, oh yeah, it was the monsters or whatever. But then there's maybe also actually monsters too, so, and then do a whole other kind of side story with that. I mean, why not make it like that instead of just it being fairly hoaxy and cheap? It just, it's kind of, yeah, if I feel like if had he offered more explanations to certain aspects of the story, had he made, again, more interesting characters, had he focused in on maybe trying to do maybe a hoax aspect to it, but then maybe mix it with something else, then you would have given maybe the audience something more to be engaged in and be interested in, instead of making it a complete and utter hoax. And add in a whole other aspect to the story instead of it just being a hoax twist. So yeah, that's kind of The Village. It's kind of on a different bat, I guess, than Signs. I almost want to say they're kind of on the same level for me personally. Some people actually consider Signs to be good, and I think some people would consider The Village to be okay. So I think Signs and The Village are kind of on the same, similar plane of I guess, mediocre. And if you've changed up a couple of things, if you just made really different changes, then you could have come up with something better. So those are kind of the changes that I would have done with The Village. Make something more than just a hoax, make your characters more interesting, make it a lot more, I guess, lively, I guess you could say, instead of dull. Even though I do understand 18th century life is rather dull, you could try to at least give us interesting characters to go by, but in The Village it's kind of like just on that kind of same level, I think, of Signs. Now, the next one that I wanted to briefly talk about is Lady in the Water. Now, this is the one M. Night Shyamalan film I did not see, so I can't really go by as to how bad this one is. But after doing some research, I can understand why people would be legitimately mad at this movie. And I think this is the point too where M. Night Shyamalan is getting this kind of criticism for his films, and instead of taking kind of that criticism to heart, he kind of, I guess, mocks this criticism. And the interesting thing with Lady in the Water is it's supposed to be about sort of like storytelling. It's supposed to be about sort of these two different worlds of, kind of like a fairy tale mixed in with a real life, real everyday life. And the thing is you need to do that with heart and with a lot of, I guess, emotion and at the same time, don't be cheap. And to me, the decisions that he made were just kind of, again, fairly cheap. M. Night Shyamalan in this movie, and you'll see how sometimes he has cameos in his movie. Signs, he had a cameo, except he was kind of a person who caused something bad to happen, but which I can kind of understand why a director would put himself maybe in one of the films or in a couple where he's just kind of there in the background. You know, he maybe serves he serves a purpose, but it's not like a self glorifying purpose. It's very subtle. But in this one, he casts himself as pretty much the kind of the side or the supporting role as the savior of the film. Because he's the writer and he's supposed to write this story that's supposed to be somehow this really compelling and I guess I want to say as life-changing story to where people will, I guess, look at it and go, wow, like, whoa, you know, this is story for our time, you know. And to me, that's very, 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 very pretentious. That's like saying, yeah, look at the first 2 movies that I made that were really good, and now look at the 2 ones that maybe aren't so good, but hell, I'm not going to take that criticism. In fact, I'm going to self-glorify myself in this film, and I'm going to make myself the real means to the end of the film. Oh my, that's kind of telling the critics to go, you know, it's kind of flipping the bird to the critics a little bit. Not only does he cast himself as to be like the potential sort of hero really in the film, but he kind of makes the critics look bad. There's actually a writer who's a critic, and he's like really one-dimensionally rude and just not the nice guy, and you kind of see what ends up happening to him in the film, and you go, really? I mean, should criticism be held into such a negative regard? I mean, my God, Ratatouille handled this so much better. Like, seriously, even Pixar, who's now making almost pretty much M. Night Shyamalan quality now, and I mean not Unbreakable / the Sixth Sense quality. I mean, like, you know, The Happening and Last Airbender quality movies, like with Cars 2 and Planes and Monsters University. Like, God, at least they, in one of their films, understood that criticism is okay and that it's alright to have criticism, and you know, it's you know, even though maybe a life of a critic is easy, it's also maybe hard, and oh geez, just why would you handle this in such a one-dimensional way? Like, I understand if some, you know, there are some critics out there who I think can be fairly harsh to films, but at the same time, you know, constructive criticism on anything is good. I mean, I don't go out and say this movie was whatever fill in the blank cuss word. I like to make constructive criticism and, you know, try to think of ways in which I would make it better. And to put all critics in this very lumped in category, I think says something. It was almost like a social commentary on the movie industry. Like, oh my, and that's, I think, the two biggest problems that I had with the film, and the way it handled criticism or people who give constructive criticism. and to M. Night Shyamalan himself sort of glorifying himself. This is I think the point where M. Night Shyamalan said to himself, you know what, I don't need to try anymore. I don't care. I'm just going to go out there and have me be the savior of my movie, because I am so great and nobody else that is involved with this production is as great as me, so therefore I should cast myself as this role. Really? Like, really? Oh my, that's just very, very ego stroking and very, very, how do you say, it's just very self-centered. It's very, I mean, even if I was a director, I wouldn't even cast myself in a movie. Yeah, maybe as a cameo, or maybe where I don't even like say a line or anything, I just walk somewhere. Maybe, but oh, when you do this, it's just so, it just gives off, I think, a bad impression. And I think if people look more into the context of the movie, I think they'll understand why this made some people angry, why this kind of brought people down. And I don't understand why M. Night would do this when he knows that the critics are the people who praised him for his first two movies, for The Sixth Sense and Unbreakable. Why would you go and openly say how they're so bad? They don't know what they're doing. I know what I'm doing, and kind of put yourself in that image. Yeah, I think that was really the main two problems with this movie. Maybe also the fact that it might be a little bit dull at times. I mean, I think Paul Giamatti's a good actor. I don't know how he does in this film, because again, I haven't seen this film, but I'm going by what I've researched, and what I've researched is basically these were the two interesting claims about this movie, is that he put himself in that position. And to me, as a director, even Spielberg wouldn't do this. Like, even Spielberg wouldn't do something as low. Quentin Tarantino, I think he maybe even has some cameos, but he doesn't self-glorify himself like to be the only thing that can save the movie. Like, just, ugh. Yeah, so he should have definitely cast somebody else or given himself something different to do in the movie than having him being glorified like this. And he should have given critics more dimension. Had he given, I think, criticism more of a dimension, we could have gotten a more interesting film. We could have gotten something a little bit more on the lines of Ratatouille, where we do see that criticism has its shades of gray, and that it's not all criticism is bad, and not all criticism is wrong. In fact, it's actually productive. So, yeah, that's, I think, all I can say about that film, because again, that was the one M. Night Shyamalan film I did not see, but it does come off as to be very cheap when you do these kinds of moves, and it kind of destroys the movie. It kind of brings down the movie to that level. So, but I can't really say if Lady in the Water is like lower than Signs or The Village, but I guess you could say it's probably on that same kilter, but it does feel like it gets further down, maybe in some areas. Okay, but the next film that I wanted to talk about is a film that I did see, and it's called The Happening. The Happening, yeah, just The Happening, and things are happening, and nobody knows what's happening, and it turns out plants is what's happening, and that's what this movie should have been called. Plants is what is happening, because that's the source of the entire problem in this movie. And it's that similar problem again with Signs. Like, it's so a simplistic thing, like water. Okay, first I did water. Now I'm gonna do plants, because plants is a brilliant idea. And it's plants. And basically plants are the reason that people in this film start developing suicidal tendencies in the brain. And that somehow, that these plants somehow give off this chemical that messes up people's brains and makes them want to commit suicide. I'm sorry, it just sounds so laughable. I'm sorry, I just can't help but laugh. It's plants. It's plants. Plants! Woo! Okay, it's plants. I'm gonna have plants be the villain in my movie. I'm so sorry, but it's just so laughable. It's so laughably bad. Oh my god. Plants. Really, plants. That's what's happening. Plants. Okay, what's also another problem with this movie besides plants? Plants being a plot point. Misplaced actors. You know how Mark Wahlberg's supposed to play, really rough and tough guys in either a comedic, like maybe in like movies like Ted or The Other Guys kind of sense, where, I mean, those films I guess you could consider for me maybe more guilty pleasures. But again, he's either cast as that guy or he's cast as an action sort of hero. And in this movie, he's just supposed to kind of play an average guy where he's a little bit more, he's supposed to be a little bit more calm or subtle or not as, like, maybe over the top, okay? But he's supposed to play characters that get into over-the-top situations, and that's why people, I guess, like Mark Wahlberg. Over-the-top action situations, over-the-top comedic situations. And in this one, he's just in an over-the-top sci-fi, I guess that's what M. Night Shyamalan's going for, sci-fi movie? Survival movie? End of the world movie? And when you look at the acting and how he acts, it's so funny. The happening is just laughable. The Village and Signs and maybe Lady in the Water, I can maybe see myself taking a little bit more seriously, but this is just laughable. It's just so laughably bad. Oh my, it's crazy, like, it's just, when you just see Mark Wahlberg's acting, it's just so, it's just amusing. It's really funny to watch. It's an unintentionally funny M. Night Shyamalan movie. But I guess, and the thing is this too, is again, things don't really add up. Which is the same kind of problem that we saw with Signs. The water doesn't add up in that we don't know why all of a sudden aliens would invade a water-driven planet. We're not given an explanation as to why that is. And in this movie, we're not really given an explanation as to why the plants suddenly cause people to commit suicide. We don't see really what it is. All we know is just that it's just somehow some chemical that maybe the plants give off, I guess. But at the same time, it's like, really, you're going for that simple of a concept and the simple of a, as plants. This plants being the thing that really kills everything. I know that plants it's kind of an interesting opposite in that, how plants give off oxygen, so it gives us a means to live. So, I don't get why suddenly people are suddenly affected by it and then others, like Mark Wahlberg's character, aren't. That's where it doesn't make any sense. And it's just a very odd movie. And it just sort of ends. And it's really creepy at times, just with people committing suicide. Like, there's this one scene where people comment on, I guess, a lot, and how, you know, the tiger, no, the lion, lions basically bite off this one guy's hand because he's like, I suddenly want to commit suicide now because I've been infected by the plants. Here, please kill me now because I want to die for whatever reason. I think a more interesting concept would have been the aliens. Like, instead of, hey, you know what we could do instead of just, like, invading the planet, you know? How about we just implant it with a virus? And this virus ultimately makes them kill themselves off. If it had been aliens, if it had been that kind of a motivation, because it would have made sense, because again, aliens, you know, the aliens are trying to find clever ways in order to take over the planet, and instead of having an all-time out invasion, how about we just have them destroy themselves? Why don't we just let humanity destroy itself and see kind of what the chaos is, how the chaos sort of ensues, and oh my lord, please. That would have been so much more interesting, so much more, I think, insightful, because it's not just plants. It's not just plants. It's not just plants. It's not just these plants that just give off some chemical energy that just doesn't make any sense. You know, and actually give context. That's the thing that's really missing in M. Night Shyamalan films, at least the ones that I've been mentioning, is context. They don't have a context in explaining certain things, and it just makes me want to go, just explain, you know, just please explain these things, and come up with something that could be palpable. Like, is that so hard to ask? So, yeah, I think that's the issue I had with this one. Just plants. And Mark Wahlberg. Mark Wahlberg and plants. Those are the two things that are wrong with this movie. And if Mark Wahlberg wasn't cast, if they got somebody else that would be a lot more realistic to play a teacher / scientist, and if they got, you know, a better reason as to how these plants came into be, what's the reasoning behind it, what's the whole thematic kind of message with the story, we would have gotten a better product. So, yes, I think that's gosh darn it, plants. Plants and wind. Yeah, plants and wind. That's what causes the chemical to come. It's plants and wind. Okay. Enough on this movie. The last film that I wanted to briefly discuss is The Last Airbender. Now, this film, these problems are fairly clear. It's not like in The Happening where you can kind of, and The Village where you can kind of go, yeah, I don't know. or they're not like problems where it's like, what? You know, where you're kind of scratching your head. These problems are fairly open and almost laughable. Bad dialogue. Oh yeah, this film is loaded with bad dialogue. Very, very bad dialogue. And the acting and casting is so funny because you know how The Last Airbender is sort of based upon the TV show, the cartoon TV show, and how they don't I guess really look like the people that are supposed to be sort of in the cartoon, or be I guess the associated ethnic group or race, especially since a lot of what The Last Airbenders are revolved around is like different kind of people sort of, you know, coming together and defeating one kind of people. Then yeah, it's just yeah, I guess some people could say that the casting wasn't fit to the way the show, to what the show was going for. And if you're trying to base it on the show, which is clearly what they were trying to do, they should have dug in a little deeper and saw, oh, okay, these people are supposed to be from this area, these people are supposed to be from this area, so therefore we will cast so-and-so, so-and-so, so-and-so as this. And the thing is just too, is the acting, it's almost, it's very, it's very just kind of stale and awkward. There's no emotion there, and then sometimes the reactions that people have is kind of funny. Again, they do have that kind of confusing plot, but the cartoon explains this so much better, like, than this movie does. And you think M. Night Shyamalan had all the material, all he had to do was just condense it into a movie? And he couldn't even do that? Like, really, honestly? Like, you didn't look at this and go, the cartoon was really good. How about I just condense it into a movie and make it good? Like, he had everything, like, laid out for him. It wasn't like in all the other films where it was kind of like all his concepts and all in his head. This was a film that was based off of a cartoon, and you couldn't make it as good as the original source material of the cartoon. You had everything at your disposal. You had how the cartoon worked. You had everything, how the characters were in the cartoon. You had everything. All you needed to do was condense it into a movie. And you couldn't even do that. You couldn't even do that. You couldn't even make the characters compelling. You couldn't even make the story interesting. Like, you had the freaking cartoon. You had everything at your disposal. And you couldn't even... This is why The Last Airbender is probably... Okay, there's probably, you can mix up whatever with Signs, The Happening, The Village, but with The Last Airbender, and Lady of the Water, with The Last Airbender, it's like he had everything at his disposal to make this one good. He had everything that he could possibly have wanted, but he still made the worst one. I think The Last Airbender is probably the nail in the coffin, pretty much. The Happening was probably close, but the nail in the coffin to me was Last Airbender, for sure. When you look at the other films, you could say that there were some ideas there, but with this one, he had everything at his disposal. He already had the cartoon to work with, and yet he still couldn't come up with something more memorable or interesting. Yeah, this is why this one's the worst. This one is definitely the worst one. It's maybe not as laughable as maybe The Happening, where I feel like The Happening you can just kind of watch as a comedy because it's just so ridiculous. But this one is just... This one was the nail, I think, in the coffin for M. Night Shyamalan. And then we get the most recent film that came out, which I think was a perfect time to talk about this particular topic, the After Earth, which maybe should be called Afterbirth, but either way, because it maybe was an afterbirth of a movie. But again, what you see, if you watch that movie, you will see the exact same problems. The uninteresting plot and uninteresting characters. I guess with this one, this is the one that makes the most sense. But it's stripped down to the bone. Like, it doesn't have anything. And I haven't even seen the film, and I can already see this. Okay, so Will Smith and his son are from the future, and they don't live on Earth anymore, but they crash land into Earth, and Will Smith is like, okay, since I'm injured, we can't go, you can't go somewhere, I guess, where they can maybe get help or something. So he's like, yeah, you need to go across, my son, go across the planet and and I'll be there, you know, tracking you, and oh my. Because it's like, do we really want to know what happens? Because it has a simplistic plot, but you need to put in some good characters to make that plot interesting. You know, so we can forgive the fact that this plot is predictable. Let's see, oh, what's going to happen? Okay, Will Smith's son is going to go out, and he's going to fight whatever's out there on Earth, that is on Earth during the time, face maybe some climactic conditions, and he's probably going to succeed, and going to win, and, yeah, okay, we've seen this kind of before. Can you put in some interesting characters in there? No, we're not going to do that. We're going to make Will Smith not the charming Will Smith or the Will Smith we all like know and love. No, we're just going to strip him down to a futuristic, boring character, and we're not going to make his son all that interesting either. So, yeah, yeah, that's yeah, so I guess After Earth is, again, the afterbirth. It's literally after M. Night Shyamalan stuck his film career into the coffin. And this is what we get afterwards, afterbirth. That's what I'm calling this film. It's afterbirth. It's the afterbirth of all of the sinking of his career. No, I should just emphasize that it's sinking. It's not going up and down. But gosh, oh my. Is maybe After Earth worse than The Last Airbender? I think it's probably on that same level, where you get not good acting, you don't get good performances, you don't get good characters, you don't get it's the only thing that I could say that's different is that the plot is easy to follow. That's the only thing. After all this time of him trying to be this interesting director, it kind of shows that this most recent film is really supposed to be called Afterbirth, and that it's an afterbirth of what already has come out, because already what has come out is really not seen by a lot of the movie-going community as to be solid filmmaking. In fact, it's been seen as the exact opposite. But really, I think out of all these films, that really makes me the most angry, because again, the other films had potential. I mean, you could say that Signs had potential, you could say The Village had potential, Lady in the Water, The Happening. They were all films that were like his sort of concepts, his ideas. You know, he could have taken things and made them a lot stronger. But with The Last Airbender, he had everything at his disposal, and yet he couldn't make something out of it. That's just, if that's not horrible filmmaking, I don't know what is. If you can't take everything that was in that cartoon and shorten it down to make a good movie out of it, then you've pretty much said goodbye to your movie career. And I think people didn't know at first that he directed After Earth, but when people saw, kind of sad. I mean, it's sad. I mean, I feel like he has potential, but he sort of lost it and didn't know what to do with it anymore. I think it's kind of like with any career sometimes, where people get lost and they don't know what they can contribute anymore. But the thing is you have to, the best thing to do is to listen to other people. Listen to people's constructive criticism. Really take it in. and don't try to do what you did with Lady in the Water, try to self-glorify yourself and say it's really all their fault, it's not my fault. I'm the one that's coming up with these ingenious ideas. Focus on making things better. Focus on trying to take constructive criticism, because if you take constructive criticism, if you can listen to what other people have to say, maybe you'll come up with something better, because ideas don't just come from one person. They come from a multitude of people to make a whole. That's how kind of art works. You could say that, yeah, the artist is ultimately the one that's responsible, but the artist had to get there from somewhere. And, we have artists, from all different walks of life that have taken inspiration from other people. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's how you handle that says something about you as a director. And to me, these films really were sort of the pinnacle of the films of what I would have done. With the other ones, Unbreakable, Sixth Sense, sure, those ones have flaws, but they knew what they needed to do with the material. They knew what they needed to express to the audience. With these films, I feel like that they were just not as good. And when you can't make them as good, you don't have you don't have any grounds to have a impression upon the movie going community, and you can't. Yeah, you just can't. You just can't do that. And I think from what I've explained, I feel like that these steps that I would have taken would have improved them. I'm sure there have been other people's opinion. I'm open to hearing what other people's opinions on what they would have done to sort of change these movies. And to be honest, I feel like these ones, the first four had potential, but failed. Not maybe miserably, but didn't do it for me, at least. And then the last one was just a nail in the coffin, because he had everything at his disposal and he didn't use it, and it's a shame. But yeah, I think that's really all I can say. It's constructive criticism is important in anybody's life, whether it comes to their career, their relationships with people. Everybody deserves criticism once in a while. Everybody deserves to understand that they have flaws and that they're not perfect. And I think M. Night Shyamalan just couldn't realize that. But I think that's really all I can say. Any questions, comments, concerns, more than happy to hear you all out. But I think this was the perfect one to end on for a little while, and when I come back to these what I would have done videos, because I think they're a very interesting topic. But that's all I think I can say, and I'm so sorry this video went on for so long, but I feel like I needed to explain myself fully and completely, and I feel like within this hour I was able to. Because M. Night Shyamalan is not some kind of simple topic. It's a very in-depth kind of topic, and you need to kind of explain yourself. So I think that's really all I can say. But if there are any questions, comments, concerns, constructive criticism, more than happy to answer it. But until next time, everybody, bye-bye.